Today I'm going to demonstrate how to bind the mini book. So the first thing that we're going to do is put our signatures together. So on the first signature we have title on the right and a blank one. So the blank one is going to go on top of the title one, and then we're going to fold that in half. And that is signature one. I'm going to burnish that edge. That is signature one. The second one has an A on the right, an H on the left, BG, FC, and DE. On this one, I'm going to put the BG in the back and the DE on top of it. So we have A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. Okay, and I'm going to fold that one to the center in half. Put it down with the H up. The next one we have LM. On the opposite side is NK. JO. On the opposite side is PI. I'm going to take the LM, put it on top of the JO, and fold it in half. And lay it down with the PI. The next one is TU with VS on the back and RW with XQ on the back. I'm going to put the TU on top of the RW and fold that in half and burnish it. And place it with the X up. And then the last one, I have a blank signature and Y and Z. I'm going to take the blank signature and put it on top of the Z. Close that. There's my Y. I'm going to flip it over like this. And the only reason that I'm flipping it over is just to keep things in order. So here is signature 5, it goes on top of 4, goes on top of 3, goes on top of 2, goes on top of 1. So now it's in order, so I need to make sure that it stays in order, okay? So I'm just going to go through it, and with pencil I'm going to write very lightly head, 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 and head. And that way I'll be sure to keep them lined up. Okay. In fact, it might even be a good idea, I've never done this, but I'm going to put H1, H2, H3, H4, and H5. And that way, I'll really be able to tell. Okay, so once I've done that, then I'm ready to sew them. So I've already made a template, but the template is the same height of the book, which is 3 inches. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to mark it at 1, 2, 3/8 of an inch on one side and 1, 2, 3/8 of an inch on the other. So 3/8 and 3/8. Then I'm going to find the center. So the center is going to be at 1 1/2. So there's 1 1/2, and I'm going to make a mark, a light mark there, because from that mark I'm going to go 1/4 of an inch in that direction and 1/4 of an inch in that direction. Then I can erase that middle mark. So essentially what I've done, I've made a space for the tape that I'm going to use when I'm sewing. Okay, 3/8, 3/8, 1/2 inch in the middle. Okay, so now I'm ready to punch my signatures. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take the first one, and I'm going to put my template there, and hold it in place, and punch, 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 and punch. So for now, I'm going to use this blank template, or this blank page, and it's going to go back inside the title. But I'm going to use this for the template for the rest of the book. Three eighths, 1/2 in the middle, and 3/8. Okay. And so this is the blank page, and I'm going to put that back in the title. And Y blank, the blank goes on top. Okay. So I would run through that and check that I'm in order, A through Z. So the next thing is I took a piece of thread that's about 30 inches, and I'm going to wax that thread. So just pull it through a couple times and just wipe off any extra with my thumb. So I'm just running it through my fingers. Then I'm going to thread with the knotless knot. Place the spine away. So the spine is actually on that side. Like this. Okay, so you've actually done this sewing before. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this signature, and it doesn't matter, provided they're in order, it doesn't matter if you start at the front or the back. I'm starting at the back, so Y on the top. I'm going to open it to the center. I have my holes, and I'm going to use my weight. So I'm going to start by placing this on the edge. I'm going to start, again, perpendicular. So again, I always sit perpendicular to the sewing so that I can use my hand to flip in and out. I'm going to start in the hole that's farthest away from me. Pull it so that I have, I don't know, about a 3-inch, 2.5 inches or so. I'm going to just go in and out. So start at one end by going into the signature, and then you're just going in and out. Okay. When I come out, I'm going to take a 1/2-inch piece of tape, or paper really, a 1/2-inch piece of paper, and I'm just going to get it inside there. So I'm putting it inside there. Okay. There's my tape through that 1/2-inch space, and then I'm going to take a piece of masking tape. I'm going to take off some of the adhesive, okay, and I'm just going to tape that in place. All right, pull this snug now. All right, so now I'm going to burnish that. And then I'm going to take my next signature, flip it, so I know that I'm keeping it in order, provided I already have it in order. And then I'm going to take my needle and go directly into the hole above. Come out. Okay, don't stab that tape. Okay, when I pull, I'm always pulling in the direction that I'm sewing. So I'm moving that way, so I'm pulling that way. Otherwise, you'll rip this spine. Okay, then I go in. Oh, I'm sorry. I hook under. The same way we did with the first signature of the square back case binding. Go in and come out. Okay. So I want to make sure that my sewing is snug. So I'm going to pull a little bit on this one. I don't want to rip it, and I'm just going to tug this one a little bit. And then I know that the sewing is snug so far. Then I'm going to tie a square knot. So it's left over right and right over left. So I'm going to start with right over left. So right thread, the short one, left thread, the long one. I'm going to put it over and make a P, and then I'm going to come up through the loop. Okay, just like tying your shoe, I'm going to tighten that. So I started with right over left, so this one will be left over right. And when I cross that, it makes a 9. And I go up through the loop, and I don't want to let this twist, and I just pull that and tighten it. Once that's tightened, then I'm going to take some scissors and cut that to about a 1/2 inch, okay, or so. Next thing I'm going to do is flip this over and open it to the center. Woo! Glad that tape is there. Put my weight down. I'm just going to make my holes a little bit bigger here. Just check the placement of this. Perfect. Okay, so I have 1 and 2 tied off here with the square knot. Now I'm going to go directly into signature 3 and come out. And again, now this time, rather than hooking under, I'm just going straight across. And then I'm going to go back in. And then I'm going to come out. Now this is the spot. I don't want to move on to the next signature until number 3 is attached to number 2. So I'm going to go in between the tape to the right of the knot, in between signatures 1 and 2, come out, so that's between signatures 1 and 2, come out and go up through the loop. Then I'm going to burnish that. Flip over. Open it to the center. And take my needle, go directly into the signature above. I'm not crossing over, I'm going directly above it. And out. Okay. I'm going to go straight across, I don't need to hook under. And then out the last one. Okay. Again, I'm pulling in the direction of my sewing. Now this time I need to connect this one to that one. So what I'm going to do is go between signatures 2 and 3 and go up through that loop. And tighten it. Okay, pull that snug. And burnish that. And then flip to the very first signature. So I went 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, and put my weight down. Reinforce those holes. Not reinforce, open them up a little bit more. Okay, then I go into the hole directly above. Come out on the right side of the tape. Okay, this time, because it's the last signature, I'm going to hook under between, well, just the thread right below. Pull that snug. And back in, out the last hole. And up through the loop. And I'm essentially done with the sewing. Burnish that. Okay. So my sewing is complete. I'm going to cut off this thread to about a 1/2 inch. So the next thing that I need to do is consolidate the spine. This is a really important step with the mini book because, especially for those of you who have the thicker paper, these signatures want to separate from each other at first when you open the book. So you want to consolidate them really well so that there's no space between the signatures. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and set that about 1/4 inch or so off the edge of the paper, and I'm going to put my weight down. I'm going to take my glue brush and I'm going to lay, first of all, I'm going to make sure that they're even going straight up and that the heads and tails are in place. Okay. I'm going to just lay that thread and this thread into the spine. Okay, so put on a layer of glue. I'm going to take my bone folder and I'm going to, with my bone folder straight up, I'm going to just burnish that. What I'm trying to do is create a solid, straight, square back. Okay, so I'm going to let that dry for a couple of minutes. So 2 minutes has passed. And I'm going to put another layer on. So I'm really going to get down and make sure that they're really together. Okay. Especially at the ends, kind of separated there. So I'm going to make sure that I get glue on that, and I'm looking between just to make sure that the glue is completely between the signatures. Again, I'm going to take my bone folder and straight up and down. Okay, I'm going to wait 2 minutes and then I'm going to glue one more time. Again, get down there and make sure that all of your signatures are connected with the glue. So you really need to kind of really get a really good view of it by going down and looking. Okay, one more time. I'm going to burnish that. And then set that aside to let it dry. Okay, so now it's dry and it's time to cut my boards. So first thing I do with the board always is to mark the grain direction. So grain is long on this board. I'm going to want the spine and the boards to be grain long, or actually just parallel with the spine. So front board, back board, parallel with the spine. So the best way to do that is to, you have your marks, I'm going to take my signature, okay, I'm going to get the height, so I'm going to set it right in the corner, I'm going to get the height, and I'm going to add 1/4 of an inch. I know what 1/4 looks like, so I'm not going to bother measuring it, but you will measure it. So 1/4 of an inch. And I'm going to cut that strip. So the height of the text block plus 1/4 of an inch. By the way, if you would like to put a headband on, that would be awesome. You'd be really happy about it. And to do that, you can go to the video on the square back case binding and go to the section on headbands. Okay, so again, the width of this is the height of the text block plus 1/4 of an inch. Now notice that I've cut it, so right now it's grain short. Okay, so the grain is running parallel with the short side. Make sure that that's the case. You don't want the grain direction to be wrong. Okay? Now I'm going to cut the spine first, and I'm going to cut that spine piece, the width of the spine, mark that, so width of the spine plus 1 board thickness. So I've marked it. And now I'm going to take my 1 board thickness template and add that to the book. Okay. And then, so I'm going to cut that first, the spine piece. So I'm going to line that up. Okay. I'm going to line up on the bottom on one of the horizontal lines, and then look at the vertical spaces, make sure those are the same, because you want an even cut. Okay. So my spine piece, I'm going to double check it to make sure that it is the width of the spine plus 1 board thickness. Perfect. Okay, so that's my spine piece. The other boards are the same width as the text block. Now you'll notice that some signatures poke out more than the others. So you're going to use that as the width of the text block. So the same width of the text block, my signatures are lined up here, and I'm just going to mark that. Now remember, you would let this signature dry, this text block dry before you do this, but for the sake of, so again, this is the same height as the spine because I just cut it off, and then I'm going to cut my board. So I've made the mark, and again, horizontal line, and I'm just going to double check that to make sure that it's the same width. Okay? So I have about a 1/8 inch square here, a 1/8 inch square here, and this is even with the text block. Okay, so now I'm going to cut the other board exactly the same size. Mark that. And cut that. Place. Okay, double check that to make sure that they are the same width, which they are. Okay. So now I have a spine piece, front board, and a back board. Okay. So the next thing is I'm going to take a piece of paper and I'm going to glue these together. I'm going to bring my cutting mat back. So, spine, front and back boards. I'm going to glue those onto a piece of white paper. So I'm going to start with one of these boards. Okay, make sure that it's glued down completely. You want a thin, even layer of glue, just like always. And glue that down. You can glue it in the corner, it doesn't really matter. I'm just happen to be gluing it right in the center. I'm going to just take my ruler, make a straight line so that I can line up my other pieces. Okay, next is the spine piece. So I want three board thicknesses between each of my boards. So next is the spine. I've marked 3 board thicknesses. And I'm going to glue that up, put that in place, lined up with the other board. Usually I'll just kind of make sure that they're in line. And 3 board thicknesses away. I'm going to go ahead and burnish those. And then one more. And again, that is 3 board thicknesses away. And glue that up. Again, spine is running vertical on all 3 of these. And you don't have to start with a new piece of board, provided you have it marked and you can cut these. So that they're grain long. Okay, 3 board thicknesses away, in line with the others. Let me just make sure. I use that to kind of just make sure that they are straight. Okay, I'm going to burnish that. And I'm going to let that dry. So I've let it dry for a couple of minutes. Now I'm going to cut it so that it is right to the edge of the boards. So with this, get rid of that. With this, I'm going to use that as a template for my cover. So I'm going to set this down. This is a 6x9 piece of paper. And I'm just going to set it approximately in the center. So 6x9. I'm going to set this on here. And I'm going to make a mark at each corner here. So spine, spine, corner board, corner board. So I've made a mark at each of these corners. Okay, I'm going to get rid of that. And I'm going to use just light pencil to just give myself kind of a frame. Again, I'm using light pencil. So I'm connecting all those dots. So this is going to be my cover. And now I've identified the spine, the front cover and the back cover. Okay. So that's sort of a little outline of the bore thicknesses, the spine, the front, and the back cover. The front, by the way, is going to be on the right, and the back is going to be on the left. So now I have this light frame that I'm going to cut. Now I do want to now cut 3/4 of an inch square around that. Actually, I'm going to wait for that. So now I have in here, I have the frame for each cover, the spine, and the other cover. Okay? So my design is going to go about 3/4 of an inch beyond those lines. Okay? So just for the sake of showing you how this is going to go, I'm going to put my front cover to the right and my back cover to the left. So then my design, I'm going to go beyond this frame by about 3/4 of an inch. So I'm going to make my illustrations for my cover. So if I want to put something special on the front, you know, like an illustration, this is what it will be, an illustration that goes on the front that indicates what's inside the book, right? The back cover you can decorate if you want to, but you don't have to. By the way, no glitter, yeah, no glitter, ever in your life. Use glitter. Okay, so then I'm going to cut a 3/4 inch square. Now you can see, so I'm going to mark that, I have a piece of paper that's 3/4 of an inch wide. I'm just lining it up on the edge. And I can go ahead and cut those. Here's my straight edge normally, but I'm just going to, for the sake of time, cut that with my X-Acto. Again, I'm cutting 3/4 of an inch away. So now I have my front cover, the spine, the back cover. And I know the confines of the back cover and the front cover because I framed that out, right? My illustration goes all the way to the edge of this, okay? It doesn't stop at the frame, right? It's going to go beyond the frame so that you'll have something to fold over, right? Okay, so once you've done that, again, back, spine, front. So you're going to decorate, or you're going to put your illustration or the cover within the confines, and then the rest can just be color that moves beyond. Okay, is that clear? All right. So set that aside. Get rid of my trash. The next thing is. So this is your cover. You're going to measure 3/4 of an inch so that you know where to start. So, there we go. So from the edge, I'm going to just put a mark there. So 3/4 of an inch. The reason I'm doing this, it's going to tell me where I need to place the boards. So, and 3/4 of an inch here. So that way I'm sure that I'm placing it in the right direction, right? Okay. So I just have a little frame there that's 3/4 of an inch here and 3/4 of an inch here. Frame. Okay. The next thing is I'm going to glue down the boards, but first I'm going to cut them out again. Oh my gosh. Okay. Be careful, don't cut your thumb off. I hate it when that happens. Okay, so now what I'm going to do, I'm going to glue them down on my cover with the white side up. Okay, so again, you're making sure that your grain direction is long and parallel with the spine. Okay. All right, so those are the pieces. Front cover, spine, back cover. I'm going to take this, and I'm going to, actually I'm just going to make sure that this is oriented. All right. And I'm going to start with my first board, white side up. So I'm gluing the board. Now, because I've done that, I know that I'm lined up, right, with the front cover, or the back one, whichever. Turn that over, burnish it. Now, if you have a design on here, you'll probably want to take a piece of paper and burnish with the piece of paper to protect your design. You don't want it to rub out or anything like that. Turn that over. Okay, now I need to measure 3 board thicknesses again. So I'm going to measure that. Okay, and glue my spine down. Again, the white side is up. And put that in place. Again, I'm going to use just a straight edge to make sure that that's in the right place. So my spine piece is 3 board thicknesses away. And then this next piece will also be 3 board thicknesses away. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Mark that and put that next board, the last board, in place. Again, the white side up. Okay. Thin, even layer of glue. Make sure it's all wet when you lay it down. Okay, and I'm going to line that up. Again, a little bit of a straight edge. Tells me right where to put it. 3 board thicknesses away. I do recommend that you use text weight paper, by the way, for this, rather than the watercolor paper or whatever else you've used. Okay, so now I have these boards glued on, front, spine, back. Okay, got it? All right, next thing I'm going to do is measure 1 board thickness away from each corner at about a 45-degree angle. So that I have about a 1 board thickness line from the corner. Okay, then I'm going to cut, and I'm going to cut just outside of that pencil line to give me just a little bit of extra cover. Okay. Just outside that pencil line, and just outside that pencil line. Those. So now I have my cover ready. You know what's next. I'm going to take a piece of waste paper And I'm going to set that down there. I'm going to glue all four sides. So what I do, I usually take a little glop, put it on each one, and then I'm going to brush that to a thin, even layer. You're welcome to do one side at a time if you feel more comfortable. Just remember that you do opposites first and then opposites second. So in other words, I'm going to do the top and the bottom first. So I'm setting that down. And then here I'm pressing it down right on the edge. And I'm kind of pushing that on because I don't want any space here, right? I want it to be flat against. I'm going to do that to the other side. Okay. I'm going to burnish that real quick. All right, then I'm going to just put in those little corners that are there just with my finger. I'm going to put that in, and then I'm going to put this one on and put this one on. So for you, it might be easier to do just one turn in at a time. Okay, so then I have my front cover and my back cover. Okay, again, the front is on the right, so that when you fold it, front is on the front, the back is on the back. Okay, so now I have this ready. Then once I have that ready, it's time to case in. So I'm going to have some pieces of waste paper ready. And for the sake of speed, these are going to be just a little bit bigger than the text block. Okay. So first thing I'm going to do is put a piece of waste paper in. So again, this is a little bit bigger, so it's going to stick out on all three sides. And I'm going to glue that up. I'm going to glue the threads down. Not the threads, the tapes down. And then I want a thin, even layer. Probably a good idea to use waste paper underneath. Okay, so it's all wet. So I'm going to take out this piece of waste paper and I'm going to set it in so that it is centered here and here. So this square is the same as this square. And I'm going to hold this so that it's at a 90-degree angle, like that. And I'm going to set this down, and I'm going to hold this at a 90-degree angle, push my text block against the spine, and then just let it drop. Okay? Then what you want to do is use your bone folder, and you just want to put pressure on the joint here. And you're going to hold that. You know, you don't want to rip the paper, so not too much pressure, but you want to hold that for maybe 2 minutes, okay? And what that does, it attaches the paper of the covers onto the text block. And you need that for the motion of the book, okay? Hold that in place, and then you're going to flip it over. Again, here I would put in a piece of waste paper to keep it from sticking and to absorb some of the moisture. Then I would do the same thing here, piece of waste paper. Glue that up. Get rid of that. Again, I'm going to do the same thing, right angle there, and then holding the text block against the spine, I'm going to let that drop. Okay. Again, I'm going to take my bone folder and set that in the joint space, hold it down, so that that joint space touches and adheres to the text block. So a couple minutes I do that. And that's how the front looks, and that's how the back looks. So a little bit of a indent here and here. And have a piece of, again, two maybe, just to flatten it out. You might want to open just a little bit to make sure that that's flat. If it's not, take your bone folder and just get that flat. But you don't want to open it more than this, okay? In fact, if possible, kind of peek under and make sure that it's completely flat. And don't open the book for at least 24 hours. It's tempting, but don't open it, okay? And then what you're going to do, you're going to put it between your boards, and you're going to press it in the press just for a couple minutes. Well, I pressed that in the press, and now I'm going to just keep weight over it for 24 hours. Okay? All right, and then you'll hand in those text blocks sandwiched between here. Okay? Next time in class then, you're going to take these out and you're going to show it off to everybody, and then you're going to hand it in to John Mose for grading. Okay? All right, any questions?